Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. I begin by advising myself and all of you to adopt the taqwa of Allah as is the best of provisions. The verse that I chose for today's discussion is from Surah Hadid, chapter number 57 from the Holy Quran, ayat number 4, which I had also recited last week. And we spoke under this ayah some of the concepts of the creation of the heavens and the earth and how the application of that when it comes to the relevancy of it with human race and human being and their existence matters. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this ayat of Surah Hadid says, "It is He who created the heavens and the earth in 6 days." That itself is a difficult concept to comprehend, 6 days, and inshallah we'll get to that. Then settled on the earth. That again, something which is difficult to fathom, that when Allah finished creating the earth and the heavens in 6 days, then He settled onto some sort of throne of His, arsh, as it refers to in Quran. He knows whatever enters the earth and whatever emerges from it, and whatever descends from the sky and whatever ascends to it. So there's not just descension, that things descend from the sky, which is something which is common to all of us, we know. So rain descends from the sky and other things might also descend from the sky, but there's also ascension towards the sky. And He is with you wherever you may be. That is again something which we can understand to an extent as to that Allah is with you all the time. And Allah sees best what you do. So there's so many concepts which have to do with the akhlaq, which have to do with the aqaid, and of course the beliefs, the theology of Islam is questioned over here. Many people have raised arguments in regards to this ayat as to what does it mean that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala needed 6 days to create? What does it mean that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sat on His throne? And other things that are mentioned in it. So these are theological questions that of course require in-depth analysis and understanding. So we began last week and I knew we won't be able to cover the entire subject, so I paused in between. But just to recap, so that those who weren't here or those who didn't hear, they can understand that whatever goes inside the earth, like the seeds, the drops of rain, roots of trees, dead bodies, treasures, etc. And that which comes out of the land, like the stems of the trees, water wells and the springs, different type of minerals, and all the other edible items that come out of this. I guess the live audiences are having issue, no voice. I can't help you. I hope this works out. We are okay from our end. So the things that come out, minerals and whatnot, all are known to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So even we can figure that much out. We can search in the ground, in the land, even geologists, they're able to tell us what's in it and what's not. All of these things are well within their reach. Let me just quickly look at it 1 second. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. I don't know why they're having issue hearing us. Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. Someone in the audience can confirm maybe if the audio is going in the live stream. Yes, audio is there. Okay, thank you. So audio is working. Those who are watching online. Whatever goes inside the earth and whatever comes out, even you and I can tell to an extent. So it's not like it's super superstitious knowledge or something which requires a great deal of understanding. Even ordinary people will be able to tell things that went inside the ground and things that emerge and come out of the ground. Now, of course, things that go inside and what comes out, that is where I don't want to use the word magic, but the miracle of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is that you plant a seed and it grows into and tree and produces fruits and whatnot. So faith in the knowledge and presence of Allah, the later part of the ayah says, faith in the knowledge and the presence of Allah is the best tool for our upbringing, for our tarbiyat, for our nurturing. Why? If mankind understands that God is with him every moment and our deeds are under his supervision, he wouldn't break or trespass any of the laws. So the connection between what he said earlier in the ayat with what he's saying towards the end of the ayat. A lot of time, these are the places where Quran is worth exploring. It is not something which is, unfortunately common practice is just to read as much as possible and try finishing the Quran as soon as possible, which is fine. Make the habit of that. Even that is beneficial. Well, of course, we keep on mentioning that. We did the last night as well. Is more important is to understand, to be able to ponder over it. So many such ayat in Quran that exist that talk about something in the beginning, and then in the end of the ayat, there's a different topic altogether. Here's the same thing. In the beginning, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is taking us to, it's sort of like a ride into the heavens and the earth, the creation of it. You throw us off by saying that Allah created the skies and the heavens and the earth in 6 days, then he settled on his throne. So we're stuck over there trying to comprehend that. Then he brings us down, saying what? He says, Allah sees everything what you do. And if you believe in him and you believe that he's supervising over you, there's surveillance constantly over you, then you would correct your duties and the things that are upon you. You will make sure that your actions are aligned when you are in presence of others and individuals. So the real pleasure is only in the deeds performed for God. So there were many different ways to remember Allah, and we mentioned that last week, so I won't go in that example. How different favors of God demand and emerge as different ways of remembering him. So this has been mentioned in the Kalam of Ma'sumin, that the remembrance of the ni'mat of Allah, if you remember the favors and the bounties of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is the element of being grateful. So when you think about the favors, right away it makes you do what? Alhamdulillah. Say Alhamdulillah, and you're grateful. This goes for everyone else. If you receive something from someone, right away, there's this concept of gratitude that emerges in you. It's common sense. When you think of the qudrat of Allah, you see all of these things that are mentioned as far as the power of Allah, that he says kun and it becomes, and nothing is hidden from him. Ala kulli shayin qadir, he's qadir over everything. When you think about the power and the might and the qudrat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what does that make you do? That results in having complete tawakkul and reliance upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when you think about the favor, it leads to gratitude. When you think about the power and the might of Allah, it leads to what? Tawakkul. You can rely on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When you think about all of the, this has to do with the favors as well, but grace, the word lutf is being mentioned. When you think about all the lutf that Allah has done, at one point he's supposed to provide for us. He does that. But then he goes above and beyond and gives us something. That's what? That's extra. That was not warranted. That's the lutf of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you're responsible to take care of someone, you have kifalat of someone, you provide for them adequate amount which is required. And then you go out of your way and go do extra. What does that show you? That's the lutf of that individual. So the lutf of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala results in what? Results in muhabbat and our increment of love towards him. So if someone shows that sort of grace to you, you're inclined toward that person. So that has happened. When you think about the severity of his wrath and the torment of the hellfire and all those things that are associated with that, what does that result into? That results into having fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, having khashiyat, and makes you what? Humble, and feel the humility in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When you think about the azamat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that how the taqaddus and the grandeur of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that also results in being humble in front of him. When you think about his knowledge of the seen and the unseen, you know that Allah has the knowledge of the seen and the unseen. What does that result into? That results into you having haya and chastity and modesty. That makes you modest. The fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has knowledge of the seen and the unseen, that should result into the fact that we should be modest and we should be showing chastity. Let's just and then when we talk about the afu and the karam and the forgiveness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that results into what? That results into having umeed and raja and hope in the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When we think about that, Allah is so afuun, ghafur, and He forgives and whatnot. That's the element that lights up what in you? Lights up the fact that you have hope. Even with all the things that you've done, there's still hope that you might be subject to the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And lastly, when you think about the adl, because one of the things that we teach kids from the very beginning when we're teaching them usul ad-din, tawheed, adala, that Allah is adil. So when you think about the adalat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, adalat, and we know the concept of justice, what does that enable you? That gives and brightens up or illuminates or results in you having piety and taqwa in you. So when you think about the adalat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that He will deal with everyone with justice, and that makes you muttaqi. Because we make the dua that, oh Allah, treat us with your mercy on the day of judgment and not with your adalat. Because if you were to deal with us with your adalat, then, of course, we will not be able to survive without the shafa'at of Masumeen. But with that concept of adalat, that Allah is adil. Now think about it, because a lot of these concepts, unless you think about it in the real life, it may not make that much sense. That's why I was trying to give example for the youngsters, for everything that you receive from someone, and then on top of that extra favor, right away, that makes you like that person. Similarly, over here, when you're standing in front of a judge or a policeman, you know that this policeman is he's very strict with his rules, and he's not going to loosen up or be lenient. He's going to stick by the rules, go by the book. So you're going to make sure that you practice taqwa, so that you don't give him an opportunity to practice his adalat, lest it results into your harm. So these are different ways of remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and these are different elements that emerge. So remembrance of Allah is also not the same. You hear this word a lot, remember Allah, remembrance of Allah. But different types of remembrances result into different types of, elements of tashakkur, or the element of taqwa, or the element of khashiyat and humility and humbleness. All of these are the different results from Sallallahu Alaihi Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. So let me get back to the original questions that we had. I'm sure you might be having this question as to, Maulana mentioned 6 days. He's going to talk about that. Where are we wandering now? Some of the messages that we derive from this ayat is that although God has power to create everything instantaneously by saying kun, and it becomes, He has the power to do and the will to do that. But His wisdom demands that He create things gradually. And that's why He said, khalaqa fi sittati ayyamin, that He created the heavens and the earth in 6 days. This should not be taken in the fact that He could not have done it in 5 days, or 6 was a specific number that has to be there. No, Allah has the power to do it instantaneously. But the fact that He's mentioning 6 days, there's hikmah behind it, and it sort of gives us the idea of gradually doing something. You're always told when you're trying to do tarbiyat of your children, to teach them things in a gradual manner. Don't pour everything onto them all at once. That now you are 9 years old, your daughter is 9 or 10 years old, she's baligh, now she has to, now all of the things are, this should have been a gradual process. When she was, for example, 6 or 7, 8, this process should have started so that they get used to it. Just like when you have a new Muslim, a person who wants to convert. A convert comes, you want to convert him, you don't want to scare him off by saying, the moment now that you have converted, now you have to pray 5 times a day. You have to, Ramadan is coming up, 30 days of fast. And mashallah, you have enough wealth, you're going to go to Hajj this year as well. All of these things, all at once become what? Wajib upon you. The poor guy will run away. You got to gradually bring them on board. So they're just walking into this religion. They're new to it. They're going to run away if you pour all of these things onto them. So tell them, try and perform at least one salat a day. I know 5 are wajib on you. That's why it's the best practice when someone comes and tells you that I want to convert. Tell them to start practicing before you actually utter the shahadatain. Because the moment you utter the shahadatain, all of these things will eventually become obligatory upon you. But if you start practicing now without converting, you'll come up to par. And then the moment when it comes for you to go ahead and recite the shahadatain, then you'll be able to perform all the duties. But here we understand the concept of teaching things gradually. So Allah is trying to inculcate the same thing. He can create in an instant, but he mentions that he created the heavens and the earth in 6 days. God has knowledge, and God has, through his knowledge, he knows and has the details of all the minor things that exist in the creation. And also, we are all in the presence of Allah, and he's aware of all the minor details about things that you and I do. So these are some of the obvious messages that come out. Concept of creation of heavens and earth in 6 days. Let me go through this quickly. Inshallah, we'll wrap it up. This concept has been mentioned in Quran on 7 occasions. That he created earth and heaven in 6 days has been mentioned how many times? 7 times. So the first of it is Surah Araf, verse number 54. Last of which is in this surah, Surah Hadith, which we recite. What does it mean that he created the earth and the heaven in 6 days? So the word that is being used is Sittate Ayyamin. Ayyam is a plural for yom. What does the word yom mean over here? That is itself is a discussion. There are ayat in Quran which talk about the fact that yom, that we have 24-hour day. Yom means day in English, 24 hours. Is that what the word yom over here refers to, or is it a different thing altogether? And then what does it mean by creation? Does that mean that when it all came into existence, or when it was ready for human race to reside and inhabit this place? Is that what it is referring to? So there are all of these different questions that come about it. Yom, or day, in the verse, or these verses, is not like regular days. This is the popular stance of the Mufassirin. That it's not like the regular days that we have 24 hours. Rather, it is referring toward a specific period. Whether it's long or short, we don't know. But there are some ayat that suggest that it actually is longer than our 24 hours. This terminology is common in Arabic language as well as other languages. For example, we hear the following: today, this party is the ruling party. Tomorrow, another party will rule. What does that mean? They were ruling today. Does that mean after 24 hours it ends? No. The Democratic Party was ruling. Now it's the Republican. Tomorrow, yesterday was Republican, and today is, for example, the Democratic. So the word used today in this context, does that mean 24 hours? Of course not. You're referring to today as hal, the present. So then when we don't use the word today or tomorrow or yesterday, which means 24 hours, then it is safe to say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is also not using it. This word has appeared in Quran for more than 100 times, sometimes as a singular, as yom, for example, Yom al-Qiyamah on numerous occasions, and some places it has appeared as ayyam. And one of the ayat shows the resurrection is a long period. Yom al-Qiyamah, the day of judgment, also refers to yom. Again, you say, well, yom, it's just one day. Qiyamah will take place in one day. All these people will be judged in one day. We're trying to vaccinate 300 million people in this country. It's going to take us a couple of years. How are we going to have, on the day of judgment, billions of people who have passed away and the billions of people who are alive all be judged in one day? Well, of course, it's possible. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants, it could happen. But what is the reality behind it? It says in this ayat of Surah Ma'arij, ayat number 4, it says that the hereafter is 50,000 years. The angels and the spirit ascend to him in a day whose span is 50,000 years. In a day whose span is 50,000 years. Now, a lot of these concepts are those who are very interested in talking about, the outer space and the black hole and the galaxies that exist. When you think about it, the concept of a day over there is also different than the concept of day over here. A day over there might mean many years over here. So this is a concept which is something you and I are well versed with. In many traditions, the word yom has appeared to reflect on a specific period of phase. Amir al-Mu'mineen, Imam al-Muttaqeen Ali ibn Abi Talib said, Ad-dahru yawman, yawmun laka wa yawmun alayka. I guess I've run out of my time, so I'll conclude with this kalam and misk of Amir al-Mu'mineen. He says in this Nahj al-Balagha, the world has 2 days. Think about it. The world has 2 days in it only. So what does that mean, 2 days? Well, for you, the world only has 2 days. How? So the world has 2 days, one for you and the other one against you. Today, it might be your turn. Tomorrow, it might turn against you. So Imam is trying to tell us, Ad-dahru yawmun laka wa yawmun alayka. So when things are going well, don't think that is it. It might turn around and go against you another day. So when the day is for you, do not feel proud. And when the day is against you, endure it. And then, of course, this also leads to the concept, and I will clear that as well, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions him sitting on the throne. That is again a theological aspect which is mentioned in this ayat number 4 of Surah Hadid, that after Allah created fi sittati ayyamin thumma stawa ala al-arsh. So the concept of 6 days is clear. Ala al-arsh, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala situated on the throne. What does that mean? We know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not a body. He doesn't have the physical body like you and I do. Of course, we might like to think that way because that's as far as our comprehension goes. When we say that Allah is Sami'an Basira, that he can see and he can hear, so we think of ears and eyes for him. When he says Yadullah fawqa aydihim, God's hands are above their hands, we like to think that Allah has hands. When we read in our khutbah that kullu shay'in halik illa wajhu, that everything will perish except his face, we like to think that Allah has a face. And many other things that are mentioned in ayat of Quran. I have not used one hadith in as far as mentioning different body parts of Allah subhanahu. So we believe that Allah does not have any body parts. So if Allah does not have any body parts, then what does it mean? Thumma stawa ala al-arsh. What is arsh? Linguistically, arsh means a place with a roof, and sometimes the roof itself is called the arsh. For example, in Surah Baqarah 259, the story of Prophet Uzair, it says, أَوْ كَالَّذِي مَرَّ عَلَى قَرْيَةٍ هِيَ خَاوِيَةً عَلَى عُرُوشِهَا. Or he who, when passing by the ruined village, that has fallen on its roofs. Urush refers to the ceiling on top of your head or the roof itself. So what does that mean that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is sitting on the earth? Mufassirin mention that anytime, whenever there's a discussion related to the body parts of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, these ayat are not to be taken in their literal sense. Because if you take these ayat in their literal sense, then you will be associating body parts with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. All you need to know is read the first khutbah of Nahj al-Balagha, where Amir al-Mu'mineen very beautifully mentions that if you go ahead and associate ajza, body parts and organs with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which are confined to a place, then you have limited him. If you limit your Lord, then you have restricted him, and we don't believe in a Lord who is limited or restricted. Because you and I are bound with certain limits because of these body parts, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is beyond that. So then how do you put a parallel between the ayat which talk about these body parts? It's very easy. Every single one of these ayat which talk about physical body are referring toward, in metaphorically, the concept which is behind it, which means when it says Yadullah fawqa aydihim, that Allah's hand is on top of their hands. Hand does not mean the literal hand of Allah. Hand refers to the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When you hold something, when you have power, it says, us bande ka haath uske upar hai, someone's hand is on top of, they have their backing, someone else's. That concept is also there in our worldly life. So when you say the hand of Allah, because that's why Jews had said, Yadullah maghlula, God's hands are closed, locked up. Allah said, no, hiya mabsutatan, his hands are wide open. So the concept is not that he has literal hands, rather hands refer to his power and his might and his ability. Similarly, I still haven't answered. ثُمَّ عَلَى الْعَرْشِ اسْتَوَىٰ, that Allah is situated and sitting on the throne. What does that mean? He said, when you sit, those of you who are sitting on chairs, what does that mean? Look at the person who sits on a chair. When they sit on a chair, they have complete possession of that chair, the tasallut over that chair. Now take that in the context of a king who's sitting on a chair. Now, king who's situated on a throne. Metaphorically speaking, a king, a sitting king, does not literally mean sitting on a chair which is made of gold and whatnot. Rather, it means that person has tasallut, has power, has possession over everyone who's underneath him. That's what the kings do. They have, you and I are their subjects, and they are the kings. So similarly, think about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When he's sitting on his arsh, everything is under the tasallut and the possession of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the tawfiq and ability to ponder in these ayat and better understand their implications. Inna asal hadith wa ablagh al-mawidha kitabullah. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Wal asri innal insana lafi khusr illa alladhina amanu wa 'amilus solihat wa tawassaw bil haqqi wa tawassaw bis sabr. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله الذي لا اله الا هو الحليم الكريم غافر الذنب وقابل التوب وهو الغفور الرحيم. سبحان من سبقت رحمته وذبح وبسط اليدين بالرحمه. سبحان من لم يكلف نفسا الا دون وسعها وعلى افعال السيئات ولم يجاز بها. سبحان من لا يزداد على معاصي العباد الا كرما وجودا وعلى كثره الذنوب الا عفوا وصفحا. نشهد ان لا اله الا هو لطوف على العباد بجوده ولفظ المظلمين بحلمه. ونشهد أن محمدا نبيه وحبيبه سيد المرسلين وشفيع المظلمين بعثه رحمة للعالمين صلى الله عليه وآله. على قد أمركم الله في محكم كتابه بالصلاة على نبيه وحبيبه فقال تعليما لكم وتشريفا لسفيه إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على سيد المرسلين وشفيع المظلمين نبينا محمد صلى الله عليه وآله وعلى إمام المسلمين وقائد الغر المحجلين أمير المؤمنين علي بن أبي طالب صلوات الله عليه وعلى سيدة نساء العالمين وبضة خاتم النبيين سيدتنا فاطمة بنت رسول الله صلوات الله عليها وعلى الحسن المجتبى وعلى الحسين الشهيد بكربلاء وعلي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي عليهم الصلاة والسلام. اللهم صل على مولانا صاحب الزمان ما هي آثار البدء والطغيان هادم أبنية الشرك والنفاق حاصد فروع البغي والشقاق صلوات الله وسلامه عليه وعلى آبائه الكرام ما اتصلت الليالي والأيام. اللهم عجل فرجا وسهل مخرجا واكحل ناظرنا بنظرة منا إليه واجعلنا من المستجابين بين يديه وتفضل على أمرائنا المؤمنين بمزيد التوفيقات وازدياد الإقبال وعلو الدرجات. اللهم افعل بنا ما أنت أهل ولا تفعل بنا ما نحن أهله بجاه محمد وآله المعصومين صلوات الله عليهم أجمعين. اللهم اجعلنا ممن يذكر فتنفعه الذكر ان الله يامر بالعدل والاحسان وايتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون.